Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read Essex 6066 Gulliver's Trouble by Jonathan Swift. Chapter 2. Life in Lilliput. I was careful to behave as well as possible to persuade the king to give me my freedom. Lilliputians soon began to lose their fear of me. They called me the Man Mountain. Sometimes I lay down and let them dance on my hand. From time to time, children came to play games in my hair. By now I was able to speak the language well. One day the king invited me to watch the regular entertainment, which I greatly enjoyed by him, his family and his lords and ladies. I was most interested in the rope dancing. Very thin rope is fixed 30 centimeters above the ground. People who want to become the king's most important officials jump and dance on this rope. And whoever jumps highest without falling gets the best jump. Sometimes the king orders his lords to dance on the rope to show that they can still do it. The sport is, of course, rather dangerous. There are occasional deaths. As a result, it seems a strange way of choosing officials. There was another interesting entertainment. The king holds a stick in front of him and sometimes moves it up and down, one by one. People come up to him and jump over the stick or crawl under it. They go on jumping and crawling as the king moves the stick. The winner is the one who jumps and crawls for the longest time, and he receives a blue ribbon to wear around his waist. The second best receives a red ribbon, and the third best gets a green one. Many of the Lilliput lords wear their ribbons proudly at all times. I had certainly never seen entertainment like this in any of the countries I had visited before. Some days later, a strange black thing was seen on the beach where I had first arrived in Lilliput. When the people realized it was not alive, they decided that it must belong to the Man Mountain, and the king ordered them to bring it to me. I thought I knew what it was. When it arrived, it was rather dirty because it had been pulled along the ground by horses. But I was delighted to see that it was in fact my hat. I had lost it in the sea and swimming away from the ship. I begged the king so often for my freedom that at last he and his lords agreed that I need not be a prisoner any longer. However, I had to promise certain things to help the Lilliputians in war and peace, to give 2 hours warning before a visit to their capital so the people could stay indoors, to be careful not to step on any Lilliputians or the animal, to carry important messages for the king if necessary, to help the king's workmen carry heavy stone, to stay in Lilliput until the king allowed me to leave. On his side, the king promised I would receive food and drink, enough for 1,724 Lilliputians. I agreed to everything at once. My chains were broken and I was free at last. The first thing I did was visit the capital city. The people were warned so that they wouldn't be in danger. I stepped carefully over the city wall, which was less than a meter high, and walked slowly through the 2 main streets. It's usually a very busy city, with shops and markets full of people. But today the streets were empty. There were crowds watching me from every window. In the middle of the city is the king's palace. The king had invited me to enter it. I stepped over the surrounding wall into the palace garden, but unfortunately the palace itself has walls 1.5 meters high around it. I did not want to damage these walls by trying to climb over them, so I walked carefully back out of the city and into the king's park. Here I cut down several of the largest trees with my knife and made 2 wooden boxes. When I returned to the palace with my boxes, I was able to stand on one box on one side of the wall, step on the other box on the other side. I lay down on the ground, look through the windows, right into the king's rooms. You cannot imagine a more beautiful place to live in. The rooms and furniture are perfect in every detail. As I was looking in, I could see the queen surrounded by her lords and ladies. She kindly put her hand out of the window for me to kiss. I think I should give you some general information about Lilliput. Most Lilliputians are about 15 centimeters tall. The birds and animals are, of course, much smaller than the people, and the tallest trees are only a little taller than I am. All crimes here are punished, but if someone is accused of a crime, that it's proved that the accuser is lying, accuser is immediately killed. The Lilliputians believe that there are two sides to the law. Criminals must be punished, but people of good characters must be rewarded. So if a man can prove that he has obeyed every law for 6 years, he receives a present of money from the king. They also believe that any man who is honest, truthful, and good can serve his king and country. It's more important to have a good character than to be clever or intelligent. However, only those who believe in God are allowed to be the king's officials. Many of the laws and customs are very different from ours, but human nature is the same in every country. The Lilliputians like us have learned bad ways. Choosing officials because they are able to dance on a rope is just one example. Now I shall return to my adventures in Lilliput. About 2 weeks after my first visit to the capital, I was visited by one of the king's most important officials. His name was Aurel Dressel, and he had helped me many times since I had arrived in Lilliput. I studied the conversation. I'm so glad they have taken away my chains, I told him. Well, my friends, he answered, let me tell you something. You're only free because the king knows we are in a very dangerous situation. Dangerous? I cried. What do you mean? Lilliput has enemies at home and abroad. Explained. For 6 years now, we have had two political groups, the high hills and the low hills. Perhaps the high hills were more popular in the past, but as you can see, our present king and all his officials were the lowest hill. The groups hate each other, and a high hill will refuse to speak to a low hill. That's the problem with Lilliput. Now we are getting information that the people of the Blefuscu are going to attack us. Have you heard of Blefuscu? It's an island very near us, almost as large and important as Lilliput. They've been at war with us for 3 years, you see. But how did this war start? I asked. Well, you know, of course, that most people used to break their boiled eggs at the larger end. But our king's grandfather once cut a finger while breaking his egg this way, and so his father, the king, ordered an old Lilliputian from then on to break the smaller end of their eggs. People who do that are called the small Indians. But Lilliputians feel strongly about this, and some big Indians have fought angrily against the law. As many as 11,000 people have been killed because they refused to break their eggs at the smaller end. Some of the big Indians have escaped to join our enemies in Blefuscu. The king of Blefuscu has always wanted to defeat Lilliput in war, and now we hear that he has prepared a large number of ships which will attack us very soon. So you see, my friend, how much our king needs your help in order to defeat his enemy. I didn't hesitate for him. Please tell the king, I answered warmly, that I'm ready to give my life to save him or his country. Chapter 3. Lilliput at War. The island of Blefuscu is only about a kilometer to the north of Lilliput. I knew that just beyond the narrow sea separating the two countries there were at least 50 warships ready to attack us with many other smaller ships. But I kept away from that side of the coast so that the people of Blefuscu wouldn't see me. I had a secret plan. From the king's workmen, I ordered 50 heavy metal hooks, each fastened to a piece of strong rope. I took off my coat and shoes and walked into the sea with the hooks and ropes in my hand. The water was deep in the middle, so I had to swim for a few meters, but it only took me half an hour to get to Blefuscu. When the Blefuscans saw me, they were so frightened that they jumped out of the ships and swam to the beach. I then used one hook for each ship and tied all the ropes together at one end. While I was doing this, the enemy shot thousands of arrows at me, which caused me a lot of pain. I was afraid of getting an arrow in my eyes, but I suddenly remembered I still had an old pair of reading glasses in my pocket, so I put them on and continued my work. When I was ready, I started walking into the shallow water away from Blefuscu. As I walked through the waves, I pulled the enemy's warships behind me. When the people of Blefuscu realized that all the ships were disappearing, the cries were terrible to hear. As I came nearer to Lilliput, I saw the king and all his lords and ladies standing on the beach. They could only see Blefuscu warships coming closer. As I was swimming and my head was occasionally under the water, therefore they supposed that I had drowned, and the Blefuscan ships were attacking. But when they saw me walking out of the sea, they welcomed me warmly with cries of astonishment and delight. The king himself came down to the water to meet me. Everyone in Lilliput is grateful to you, he cried. For your bravery, you will be one of my lords from now on. Thank you, sir, I replied. And now, go back and steal all the enemy ships so that we can defeat Blefuscu forever. We will destroy the big Indians and I'll become king of the whole world. But I wouldn't agree to this plan. Sir, I will never help to take a brave nation's freedom away. Lilliput and Blefuscu should live in peace now. The king could not persuade me. And unfortunately, he never forgot that I had refused to do what he wanted. Although I had saved this country from attacking, he forgot to remember my refusal. From this on, I heard from my friend that there was secret conversation in the palace between the king and some of his lords who were jealous of me. These conversations nearly led to my death in the end. About 3 weeks later, King Blefuscu sent his officials to ask for peace between the two countries. After the Blefuscans had arranged everything with the Lilliputian official, they came to visit me. They had heard how I had prevented the king from destroying all their ships. After thanking me, they invited me to visit their country. But when I asked the king of Lilliput if I could visit Blefuscu, he agreed. But very coldly, I learned later that he and some of his lords considered I was wrong to have a conversation with enemies of Lilliput. Now I was beginning to understand how difficult and dangerous political life can be. A few days later, I had another chance to help the king. I was woken at midnight by the cries of hundreds of Lilliputians outside my house. Fire, fire, shouted. The queen's rooms in the palace are burning. Come quickly, man, mountains. I pulled on my clothes and hurried to the palace. A large part of the building was in flames. People were climbing ladders up the walls and throwing water on the blah blah blah. The queen and her ladies had escaped, but there seemed to be no way of saving this beautiful palace. Evening before, I had drunk a lot of good wine, and very quickly I had not made water since then. I managed to put out the whole fire, and the lovely old building was safe. I went home without waiting for the king's thanks because I wasn't sure what he would say. Although I had certainly saved the palace, I knew it was a crime, punishable by death, to make water anywhere near the palace. I heard later that the king was so angry that she refused to enter any of the damaged rooms ever again and promised to take her revenge on me. The end.